conversation is going round. People talking about the girl who's come to town. Fresh as a summer breeze, she'll take you by surprise.
Hello and welcome to another fabulous episode of Fresh Waves here on Whistle FM. We have a great show lined up for you today. Yolana is unable to be with us this morning, so we've got Christmas stress tips. We've got framing and how to get a great picture frame as a beautiful gift for people in your life. That's from Tara, who's going to be calling in a few minutes from Artephile Stouffville Picture Framing. And then, of course, we've got Keith Pitts on at the top of the hour to tell us all about the Black Friday deals available this year and, of course, cross-border shopping in general, how to make cross-border shopping work for you and still be a good Canadian. Before we get started, though, big shout-out going out to Reeser's Market and Bakery for the muffins that are in the studio this morning. Thank you to them. They're at 5758 Main Street. And a big thank you to Ivan Harris, producer at large, and Jason Rumball here, our technical producer behind the board. Hi, Jay.
Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Great, thanks. Thank you for all you're doing behind the board.
My pleasure.
Good.
No, we're sounding good today, so.
We've got a birthday.
Oh,
a birthday wish going out today.
Oh, boy.
This is to my niece and goddaughter, Jamie. She's in Switzerland, and she's in London, England now. She's working in England, and this is the end of their day, and her mom's listening from Switzerland, and this is the dinner time hour for them. So they're listening to the show, and we're giving a big birthday shout-out to Jamie. So in honor of her birthday and in honor of the fact that she just loves the Arrogant Worms, we're going to play the Happy Birthday song from the Arrogant Worms. This is going out to you, Jamie. Happy birthday.
Once a year we celebrate with stupid hats and plastic plates. The fact that you were able to make another trip around the sun. And the whole clan gathers round and gifts and laughter do abound. And we let out a joyful sound and sing that stupid song. Happy birthday, now you're 1 year older. Happy birthday, your life still isn't over. Happy birthday, you did not accomplish much, but you didn't die this year, I guess that's good enough.
So let's drink to your fading health and hope you don't remind yourself your chance of finding fame and wealth decrease with every year. Does it feel like you're doing laps and eating food and taking naps and hoping that someday perhaps your life will hold some cheer? Happy birthday! What have you done that matters? Happy birthday! You're starting to get fatter. Happy birthday! It's downhill from now on. Try not to remind yourself your best years are all gone.
If cryogenics were all free, then you could live like Walt Disney and live for all eternity inside a block of ice. But instead your time is set, this is the only life you get, and though it hasn't ended yet, sometimes you wish it might. Happy birthday! You wish you had more money. Happy birthday! Your life's so sad it's funny. Happy birthday! How much more can you take? But your friends are hungry, so just cut the stupid cake. Happy birthday! Happy birthday! Happy birthday!
Bill,
Crafton,
Stanley,
Zipper,
good
Frank, Skippy, the
Dickie, and
kangaroo.
Bob.
Starts with when the weather is nice.
You know.
Hi folks, Kim Mitchell here. You know, however you choose to get around, your ATV, your snowmobile, your boat, car, if you have a motorcycle, all these things take 100% of your attention and skill to operate safely. Alcohol impairs that, and bad things can happen. So, be smart, okay? You know what I'm going to say next.
This message brought to you from the Safe and Sober Awareness Committee.
And we are back in the studio here live on Fresh Waves. We have our guest on right now. This is Tara from Artephile Stouffville Picture Framing. Good morning, Tara.
Good morning.
And how are you today?
It's sunny. It's a little chilly, but like, you know what? It's an amazing day.
Yeah, a little chilly is what we're kind of going to expect for the next little while because, you know, winter comes and it doesn't leave until, I don't know, May.
Hello, Canada.
That's right. All right. So I would like to talk to you this morning about, I don't know, something unique, like picture framing. Based on the fact that you're from Stouffville Picture Framing, it would stand to reason we're going to talk to you about picture framing. But we're going to give it a different vent. We're going to talk about picture framing as a gift. Because I think a lot of people don't realize that one of the nicest things you could ever give someone is a framed photograph. And if you do it properly, I guess it could probably go just about anywhere, right?
It can. It can. I mean, there are certainly ways of framing things that are stylish, but appropriate for lots of different decors.
Okay, so if you were to get a nice...
My thought is that even photographs, yes, but often it's objects. It's things of significance.
Really? You're going to frame a thing?
Well... Last year, I had a client, and her parents died, and what they did is they took recipes out of the grandmother's recipe book, and they framed every single page of the recipe book.
Wow.
And each of the grandchildren got a recipe from the grandmother.
What a brilliant idea. I would never have thought of that.
It was wonderful. And some of them were funny, you know, I would say funny, just, it was like the bran muffin recipe, but you could tell that it was a well-loved recipe.
Yeah.
It had egg splatter on it, and, you know, but it was a piece of history that you were getting. Not only the recipe, but all the feelings that went along with it. So you remembered eating that in your grandmother's kitchen. You remember how it smelled. You remember how it felt to be there. I mean, that's what the gift was. It was a gift of that.
Yeah,
And I think the meaningfulness of things, especially at Christmas, can be the gift that you're giving wrapped up in a package.
That's an amazing
and the
idea.
Framing can be the package.
That's an amazing idea. Now,
Similarly, I had someone who framed, one of the relatives had spent a lot of time doing these seat covers for a dining room set. So there were 8 chairs, and they each had a needlepoint seat cover. Well, we removed the seat covers, and then we framed the needlepoints.
Wow.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Just the getting them off of the seats and everything was a challenge.
Okay,
Again, people loved the gift because of what it meant, because who it was from, where it was, what it meant.
I can see
like
that
idea.
I have seen paintings before. There was an artist up in Bancroft area, and he was quite famous for doing beautiful oil paintings and including an element of the painting in the framing below the picture. So, for example, he did a beautiful, beautiful painting of an old sleigh, an antique sleigh being pulled by horses. And at the bottom of the picture, in the frame, was a piece of the harness with the bell on it. The
That's
actual
amazing.
harness and the bell. So this picture frame was no word of a lie. It had to be 6 inches deep.
Yeah.
But
I can't frame objects that are that deep. They become quite expensive because you can't do that with just one frame made up. They don't make them that way. You pretty much have to put frames together, like a frame as a cap and then a frame to build it up and give it the depth that you need.
I guess that's kind of an art in itself, isn't it?
It is. It's carpentry, and, you know, you need to understand, you know, the structures of things. And
but in the same sense,
but like super cool.
Yeah, and in the same sense, it's actually a kind of a way of preserving something like that in a frame that you could probably keep forever.
Yes, for sure. And that's the real gift of like excellent framing, is the conservation aspect. When something's framed, especially using acid-free materials that preserve, you no longer have something that's really in danger in the way it is when it's sitting in a drawer. Things get torn, they get lost, they get discolored. They don't necessarily stand up to time the way that they can when they're framed. They're framed properly, they really can last forever.
So in terms of your framing skills then, do you have this kind of archival ability to almost do it like a museum?
100%. 100%.
Oh, okay. Because
I only use conservation materials, so the materials I use are always acid-free, which means that they're chemically neutral, so they preserve things, so they're not going to be damaged. Say cardboard backing turns things yellow. You get that burning effect, and it's all chemical reactions. Conservation materials don't do that. And with the glass, there's different levels of glass. With museum glass being, it has a 99% UV filter.
Wow.
So really you're looking at preventing any kind of discoloration and fading from sunlight.
Wow, that's really cool. Now, here's another question. We did have a listener who had asked us this when you came on our last show, and what she was curious about is that she has some old photographs that are from the early 1900s, and even holding them, the paper literally disintegrates in front of you. Can she get it framed? Is there a way of framing it? And can she make it the frame, like this was a threefold question, can she make it so that the picture could be taken out of that frame if they choose, so not glued to anything?
Yes, you absolutely can. I have framed like photos that are extremely brittle like that. I mean, they scare the out of you. handling them. Yeah. Because you have to be so careful. There are things called museum corners. They're made out of a plastic that is chemically inert. And what happens is you can slide photos into them so that there is no tape, there's no glue, there's no adhesive in any way.
Okay.
And then later you can pull them out. They're not fixed in any way in the frame.
So they're just
that's true conservation framing.
So is that like a photo corner that you used to be able to use in old photo albums?
It's like that. Except instead of having like that full triangular shape covering the corner, it's cut away a little bit, so it just holds the edges of the photo. And then you don't have to worry about losing, half an inch of the image, on each of the corners.
Oh, that sounds great.
But you can. And in fact, to frame something like that will help the photographs stay intact in a way that keeping them in a book necessarily wouldn't do. And then you get to enjoy them. Then you get to see them every day.
Yeah, that's a really nice thing.
Is that not the real point of having these amazing things, is to look at them and enjoy them?
I think so. I'm with you 100% on that one.
Yeah.
Now, what about framing collages and things like that, where I've heard a lot of downsizers lately talking about the fact that you shouldn't have to save 600 old photographs. Choose the ones that you really like. Throw the rest in the garbage. Personally, I am not that person. I save all my photographs. But if you were to take a bunch of old photographs and make a collage of them, would it be something where you would leave the photographs on a board, or would it be more something that you would take a picture of the photographs and then frame the photo of the photographs? Do you know what I mean?
That's a personal choice.
Oh, is it? Okay.
The taking the picture and like reprinting, basically. Sometimes people do that when it's a family photo, and then you have issues about who's going to get the photo.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody wants it, but there's only one original photograph.
Right.
And then you need copies so that people can at least have the image. And and then you fight over, the original, but then everyone has it, kind of. I do collages where I cut a mat, so it's a large frame with multiple openings cut into the mat, so that you can have a lot of different pictures, but they look organized. I'm not a big fan of the kind of do-it-yourself collage where you take a board and then you just tape pictures kind of randomly all over them.
Yeah, it's kind of like an art project, but often the art project fails.
Well, and it's also, again, not a conservation process. You're gluing, you're sticking things cover other things. I just don't think it's a way to keep things properly. If it doesn't matter what it is, by all means, get your glue gun out, but something that's going to be meaningful, something that you're going to want that is treasurable, I think should be treated properly from the beginning.
Yeah.
And then you don't have regrets.
Okay, so how would you frame a family photo, and give it as a gift to somebody? I've seen a lot of those frames where it looks like a university diploma frame that they pick up at a big box store for $5, and it just doesn't do the picture justice somehow.
Yeah.
So how do you pick out a frame for ye old traditional, everybody standing stoic in a family photo?
Well, there are options. There are options in matting that look a little bit richer. I have mats that are both made with linen and also that have a surface paper that looks like linen. I love making it textured, so it's not so flat. It also gives you a range of tones so that there's some dark aspects to it, some light aspects to it, so it covers a broader palette in terms of picking colors out of its environment. Mm-hmm. So that's just a little bit of a richer look than, putting a white mat on something that's got a black frame. And recently there's a movement away from, your standard black frames on things. The new interior decors, are soft. They've got grays. They're warmer, not so beige, right?
Okay, that makes sense.
So to tie those whites in and the grays into the framing, they're still neutrals, so they're not. They're still neutrals, so they're not going to clash, but they will look more contemporary. Because I think everyone's moving to a little bit more of a contemporary feeling in their interior design.
Right, I think so too. But then that would really
cleanliness to it, less clutter, not so gooey looking with really heavy, gold ornate things.
Well, that's what I was going to say. What does that do then to the actual frame as opposed to the matting? Because you see a lot of these picture frames that have depth to them. They're kind of shallow, and then they bow out, and they've got all this woodly-doodly gold and stuff around the outside. And those are very popular with some senior citizens, but maybe not so popular with the younger ones.
Right. Well, when you have a good framer, and I'll just say generally,
like you,
they are aware of, the trends. They're aware of how people are living, and they pay attention to that. So they have the right samples, the samples that relate to what people want now.
Okay, but then there also is that old adage of the more classically it's done, the longer it might last, as opposed to doing it really trendy and then the trend changes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I guess that brings us to our next topic. We're going to take a little break, and we're going to hear that beautiful song, Baby, It's Cold Outside. But if we could talk to you a little bit more, that would be great, because we'd love to talk about taking an old picture that's been hanging around Grandma's house for a long time and maybe making it a little more modern.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back.
All right, Brenda, thank you.
I
Baby, it's cold outside.
This evening has been
hoping that you'd drop in.
very nice.
I'll hold your hands, they're just like
My
ice.
mother will start to worry.
Beautiful. Watch
And
your
my
hurry.
father will be pacing the
Just
floor.
listen to that fireplace
Now
roar.
really, I'd better
Sweetheart, what's your hurry?
Well, maybe just a half a drink.
Why don't you put some records on while
Oh,
I'm
the
full?
neighbors might think.
But baby, it's bad out there.
Hey, what's in this drink?
No cabs to be had out there.
Oh, I wish I knew how
Your eyes are like starlight now.
break this spell.
I'll take your hat to your hip.
I ought to say no,
Mind
sir.
if I move
Well,
in
at least
closer?
I'm gonna say that I tried.
What's the sense in hurting my
I
pride?
really can't stay.
Baby, don't hold out. Oh, but it's cold outside.
I simply must go.
Baby, it's cold outside.
The answer is no.
But baby, it's cold out there.
Oh, this welcome has been
So lucky that you dropped
so
in.
nice and warm.
Look out that window at
My
that
sister
door.
will be suspicious.
Gosh, your lips look
And my brother
delicious.
will be there at the door.
Waves upon a tropical
Oh, my
shore.
maintenance mind is
Ooh,
vicious.
baby, you're so delicious.
Well, maybe just one little kiss more.
Never such a blizzard
Oh,
before.
I've got to go home.
You'll freeze to the bone out there.
Say, lend me a comb.
It's up to your knees out there.
You've really been grand.
I thrill when you touch my
But
hand.
don't you see?
How can you do this thing
Oh,
to
there's
me?
bound to be talk tomorrow.
Making my life
Well, at least there'll
sorrow.
be plenty implied.
If you caught pneumonia
But
and
I
died,
really can't stay.
get over that old time. Baby, it's cold outside. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Hey, I gotta get out of here.
Come on, baby.
Come on, what?
Just give me 5 minutes more.
You sure know how to wear a girl down, don't you? Okay.
That was Baby It's Cold Outside. You're listening to Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Brenda Masson, and we'll be back with Tara and more framing tips right after these few messages. Stay tuned.